once again, my name is Tommy Nicholas. I'm an entrepreneur. I build apps and I build websites and things. I've had a lot of experience with pitching, and I think I've had the best kind of experience, which is that I've failed a whole hell of a lot at pitching. I've done a lot of failed pitches. I've had some successful pitches too, and I've also helped with the Lighthouse Labs Accelerator in Richmond, help about 9 companies hone their pitches, and several of them are raising money now. So I've seen a lot of what not to do, and I've seen a lot what to do. I think the overarching theme that I've taken away from this is both myself and just people in general are not just not good at pitching, they are terrible at pitching. So terrible at pitching that oftentimes even a seasoned entrepreneur will pitch to a seasoned venture capitalist, and the venture capitalist will not know what the entrepreneur does, what the entrepreneur wants, or what the entrepreneur has done. So that is why I've entitled my presentation today as How Not to Suck at Pitching. My Twitter handle is TommyDrunk. Tweet me any questions or comments that you have, and I'll get back to you guys after I'm done talking. Feel free to be as interactive with this as you want. So the first thing about your pitch that you really need to internalize is that starting off, nobody cares at all about you or what you're talking about. This is true even if you are sitting one-on-one with a venture capitalist who has indicated to you that he does care about what you are doing and that he wants to hear about it and maybe give you hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. And this is counterintuitive, especially if you're in college or something like that, because your peers care a lot about you. If you're in class and you have something to say, people listen to you. People will remember oftentimes what you said. Even if they're kind of half asleep and it's like an 8 a.m., people kind of pay attention to what you're saying because they're in your peer group. They might need to respond later. They might even want to engage with your project or whatever it is that you're doing. The thing is, for venture capitalists and for investors and for even potential customers, they see so many pitches, they see so many entrepreneurs coming through, and most of the pitches aren't just bad pitches, but they're bad ideas. They're not fundable. They're not things really worth paying attention to. And even though that there's a lot of money on the line, oftentimes in these situations, they glaze over and they check out. The reason for this is that most of the deals venture capitalists actually do aren't from pitches. They kind of go to pitch events to meet entrepreneurs. They want to know who they should know and maybe look at later on down the line. The people they fund are people who they get introduced to by people they funded in the past, by people they trust. These are the main ways that people get funded. So you're starting off with the fact that nobody cares. But it's okay because you can change this and you can make people care. And if you make people care, you will be on a plane that so few people are on, you actually have a chance to make a difference and actually to achieve your goals. And we'll talk about what your goals should be in a second. So incidentally, if you're making like an online product, an app, or a business of any kind, you're actually starting off with the fact that nobody cares in that as well. Not just people who might fund you don't care. Nobody cares about your website. Nobody cares about your app. But if you make people care about it, if you can get on a visceral level, and make them actually somehow engage with your product or your message on a level where they begin to care even a little bit, the growth you can see, especially in the internet age, becomes pretty astounding. I'll give you an example. Coffitivity is the project that I have most recently worked on. I still work on it a little bit, and a friend of mine, Justin, wanted to he had this terrible dead-end job. It's not the worst job in the world, but it's pretty crappy. And he liked to work from coffee shops. That's where he was able to get his work done. And his boss would never let him go work from a coffee shop. He was more productive in coffee shops. He read a white paper that said that it's the noise of a coffee shop that makes you more productive because ambient noise helps with creative cognition. So he made this website called Coffitivity that streams the ambient noise of a coffee shop, make you more productive. And when he launched it, he was kind of doing this to learn how to code. And when he launched it, to say that nobody cared is the understatement of the century. People not only didn't care, but they thought it was really silly. They thought it was really stupid. They thought why would anybody want to use this? We were able to change that perception by presenting the message as being that we are productive people. Science has proven that this is true, and we use it ourselves, and we're here to make you more productive. And once we got that message out, and a few people started to use it and care, they'd be like, this actually really helps me. The message kind of went viral, and we went from 100 people using the site to now over 1.5 million people using the site. And it's not that great. And it's not even that it doesn't even make that big of a difference. But the fact that we were able to make a few people care just a little bit made all the difference. So how do you change this when you're pitching? The first thing is you need to know that you're not going to win. You're not here to win. You're not here to get money. The Gallant Challenge and the things that Tomtoberfest will do, or Tom Festival will do, where they'll give out money sort of just from pitches, that is not a real thing. That is a thing that happens in this insular community. Generally, you want to just get them to care about you a little bit, remember you, and get a meeting. If you can be memorable, if you can be somebody that people go away and say, like, I remember his name after a pitch. Say you're in a series of 10 pitches in a row. If you're the one person, even if your pitch was kind of crappy, if you're the one person that the VC remembers coming out of that meeting, he'll see you again and he'll talk to you, and maybe you'll actually get into a meeting where you could actually get some money. So let's define our goals. Our goals are to make people care at least a little bit, and to be memorable enough where we might get another meeting. This is what we're after. A lot of people give advice about how to pitch, assuming that you might actually win. Like you might actually get $1 million just from sitting up here and speaking for 6 minutes. And it's probably not going to happen. I'm not sure that it ever really does happen. So the first way that we're going to try to craft our narrative to make people care is we're going to tell a story. And it can even get pretty silly with how much narrative you can actually craft. If you see pitches from like the biggest accelerators, the Y Combinators of the world or the 500 startups of the world, these are people who fund massive groups of startups, and they almost all get their full funding rounds done. Their pitches will be crafted around narrative, a story arc. They will often even use silly images or jokes or even music to illustrate the point. And that is because if you can tell somebody a story, I had this problem. I really hated having this problem. I hated my job. I didn't like going there. I wanted to be in a coffee shop. And I was able to fully solve that problem with this thing that I inserted into it. People will remember more than anything just that story that you had a sucky job and it got a little bit better because of this thing. They'll come away kind of understanding what it is that you do. Your businesses are probably going to be kind of complex. There's going to be nuance to them. You're going to have a sales cycle. You might have a way that you get users. You might have like a little viral tactic that you do. But if you can craft the narrative so that people actually come away remembering what it is that you do, you do a great job. A great example of when I did a really horrible job of this is one time Nick, who's actually sitting in the front row, and I went into a closing meeting on a pretty big investment deal that we really, really needed to have happen. And it didn't. And when I got the call explaining why it hadn't happened, and I asked, like, what did we do? What were you guys thinking? Like, what didn't click for you? What they said about our business that they thought wouldn't work was not something that our business even was trying to do or had even talked about doing. We had done such a poor job of crafting like a general narrative of what our story was that the VCs came away not even really understanding what our business did. And that was like an hour-and-a-half long meeting. If you can even just if you were to spend 2 minutes and get people to actually know what you're doing, you would be much better off than we were. But more than telling a story, and the reason I start with the story thing is a lot of you probably are just going to have ideas. You're going to want to pitch things that you haven't started doing. The way you can really win is not even tell a story at all, and just use facts and metrics. If you have launched, let's say you're doing a website, and you have launched, and you've gone from 1 to 1,000 users over the course of a week or a month or something. It's not that many users, and that's not an investable entity in and of itself. But put that in a graph, and that graph starts looking like extremely rapid growth that maybe, for all you know, is going to continue forever, and you're going to have 1 billion users in a couple of years. And it will seem even silly to you to imply that. But it has happened, and it is possible. And it is going to have to be your goal if you're going to get somebody to give you a whole hell of a lot of money. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got is I gave somebody a deck. I gave somebody at 500 Startups a deck, and I said, can you take a look at my deck? And she was like, I don't really read decks. Flipped through it. He was like, there's no graph. There should be a graph. Just put a graph in there, make it look like you're growing, and you will start to do a lot better. The other things that you can do are use research that you've done. You could do you can maybe say worst case scenario, you have to just do a survey of your peers and say 90% of people said they would use this. It is so much better than just nothing, because most investors in this day and age want to understand that you are taking a scientific approach to what you're doing, that you care about measuring your progress, and that you're not just so sure that your idea is brilliant and that it will work, that is going to be your process. Your process is that your idea is so perfect that you don't even need to worry. I think this is like changing slides automatically on me. That your idea is so good that it will just automatically be a success. Showing that you care about metrics and showing that you care about growth that can be measured is really important. And the third thing that you can do is be really blunt. Don't use long words. Don't say things like cognitive overhead, which is something that I was writing in a pitch I was doing for an app that we were making. Nobody really, maybe you understand what cognitive overhead means, but it's not as clear as like it's hard to remember stuff. That's what I meant by that. Say that instead. You want to come off as a formidable, intelligent person, somebody who is somebody to be reckoned with, somebody who knows things that other people don't know, who gives a competitive advantage to your company by how formidable you are. And it's tempting to use large words or complicated phrases that maybe 80% of people can't understand to do that. But actually what's really formidable is the ability to communicate really complicated thoughts really succinctly with words that virtually anybody can understand. I mean, that's what pop music is, for example. Like, you want to be a millionaire, and you can do that, write pop music. The same thing goes for pitching, and when you're trying to do something that might reach 500 million people or even 1 million people, you don't want to be in a space or in a position where you are communicating over the vast majority of people's heads, because it's very hard to get people on board with what you're doing if you do that. And that's actually the end of my presentation. I kept it short and sweet. Once again, tweet me any questions you have at @IsTommyDrunk, and get out there and start building your ideas, and I look forward to hearing about them. Thanks, guys.